Hello, my dear friends and net aspirants. Welcome back to my channel, High Point. I hope you are following my videos and thanks for your great comments and all. I'll consider all your suggestions and I will be very glad to clarify your doubts as well. So this is the fourth and last part of our overview about history of English literature. So let me quickly just brush up what we have already learned in the past three parts of history of English literature. So starting from Anglo-Saxon period, we have learned up to the Victorian age. So let me just chronologically say the ages for you just to brush up. So from Anglo-Saxon period, starting with it, we have after that we have the Anglo-Norman period, then comes the age of Chaucer, then we have the age of revival, after that we have the age of Elizabeth, then after that we have a small period known as Jacobean period from 1603 to 1625. After 1625 it is Puritan age. So in this age England saw the Commonwealth, a Commonwealth rule for the first time. Then comes in from 1660 to 1700 we have Restoration period. So what is restored here? Monarchy was restored again in England. From 1700 to 1798 it was a neoclassical age, but the second half of this particular age is also known as the age of sensibility or the transitional period, in which we could see some anticipation of romantic age because of the shift in focus from clarity, from form to emotion, instincts and all. And after that we have from 1798 to 1837 we have romantic age. In 1837 Queen Victoria ascended to the throne of England, and from there up to 1901 with the death or up to the death of Queen Victoria happened in 1901, we have the Queen Victorian reign, and the age was known as the Victorian age. So we learned so far, we had an overview of these ages so far. And today we are going to learn about the modern age and the postmodern age or the contemporary period which comes after the Victorian age. Okay, so as always we will be looking at socio-political and cultural characteristics of these two ages and literary trends as well as major authors of this particular age. Now let's move on to the main content of this particular video. So after what comes after Victorian age, it is the modern age. Modern age is from roughly from 1910 to 1945. Please remember this. It is not that modern age started in 1910. It is a rough start. I mean, it started in 1910. Okay. Roughly modern age starts in 1910 and it ends with the end of Second World War. So it's actually in the modern age we could see that a kind of very tremendous changes are happening in every other field. In the people's belief system was under change, and many number of philosophers and thinkers were there. In every other field it was becoming modernized form, and many number of studies and disciplines also emerged. It actually emerged from its primitive or ancient or kind of underdeveloped form to developed and modern forms, so that we could see in many number of disciplines as well. So radical and conscious break with the past, rejection of conventional Victorian morality. So Victorian morality is a term that you should learn or that you should understand along with Victorian age. Victorian morality means there are certain moral standards for women, especially for women and also for men. If you are a woman, you have to be like this. You have to be shallow. You have to be, fashion conscious. You have to be moral, and you have to be a good wife. You have to be a good mother. You should not be outspoken. You should not ask for, for your own freedom. So such way, you will get education to look after your children, to be a good wife and mother. So in that way you can see such characters, especially in the novels published during Victorian age. So that kind of a notion about morality or gendered kind of thoughts related to morality and social conventions is known as Victorian morality. And we can also see interventions of new forms of expression in modern age. So until Victorian age, we have prose, we have essays, we have novels, we have poetry, we have certain kind of novels, we have drama. So either drama will be a comedy or it will be a tragedy or tragic comedy. There were no new forms of expression, like we have stream of consciousness, like we have existential drama, like we have certain various other kind of drama, stage performance, very different kind of forms of expression within a same genre itself. People were began to experiment with the techniques of their writing, that we could see especially from modern age. So the thoughts were becoming very radical, very unconventional, very they were consciously breaking away with whatever there was conventional. In the field of fashion, in the field of religion, especially after this war, First and Second World War, we could see a radical shift in the belief system of people. Until then, people were too surrounded, or their belief system was centered by God or by religion. They were, their entire thought process was surrounded by these things. They will either think religiously or they will either think that way. Most of the people will think religiously only. They won't use their own brain. Whatever these religious people say, they will believe, or their entire belief system or life was surrounded by these things. But after war, after 2 wars, a tremendous shift. People began to, unlike any other time, people began to think of their own, and people began to become more radical, suspicious, and they consciously break away with some of the belief system that they had earlier. So in the field of literature, conventions were rejected. Everything that is new, they embraced. So they invented new forms of expression. So if you are rejecting whatever conventional, you have to invent a new form of expression in order to express your new ideas, your new way of thoughts. So that's exactly what they did in order to represent and in order to convey whatever shift happened inside you, especially because of the war and other atrocities happened along with that. You have to invent, or the writers have invented many forms of expression. They they experimented with the techniques. So stream of consciousness is one among that technique, new kind of technique which came into being in the modern age. And in pre to modern age, just before modern age or during modern age, we could see many thinkers and intellectual people who actually influenced the thought process of modern age. It was not all of a sudden just after Victorian age it emerged, but Friedrich Nietzsche was there, Karl Marx was there, Sigmund Freud was there. These are the intellectuals, major intellectuals who actually influenced the modern people, who actually influenced the modern thought process, modern philosophy and modern writers. Okay, then like I said, we could see a widespread experiments and innovations in subject matter, form, plot and character unlike any other previous ages of English literature. So experiments in every other field, not only in literature but also in every other field, in architecture, in fashion trends, in any other field. You see, there will be a tremendous shift was happening. A tremendous change and transition was happening. And so experiments and innovation in subject matter, in the form, in plot, in character, everything they were experimenting. The writers were experimenting every other feature of literature. Then we can see that there is a shift. Why these changes were happening? It is not restricted to only one category, only in literature. So something must be happening in the whole system, that difference, that change is reflecting in literature, right? It is not that alone in literature alone you cannot find any changes were happening. If feminist literature is emerging, that means that in society some ideals about women or something is changing about gender. That's why such a reflection we could see in literature. So in that way, if experiments were happening, innovations were happening in any other field of literature, there's something is happening in that society, right? So a shift in perception about sex, about gender, about race, about art, about life, about or life literature based on liberty and self-realization. So, some of the unchanged notions began to change. People began to understand that they are injusticefully suppressed because of their race, because of their color, because of their caste, because of their gender, because of their way of life, because of their skin color. So they began to understand this, and they began to think about the perception that they had so far, and they began to shift it to something else. Okay, so about sex and gender, we could see that gender equality is necessary. Women are suppressed for centuries, and women need equality and equal rights just as men. She need right to vote, she need education, she needs job, she need equal property rights. So in that way, perceptions began to change, and people began to question the existing stream of beliefs that they had so far, they maintained so far throughout these centuries. That's how a shift in perception about all these things happened. That shift in perception actually reflected in literature to represent that shift, that change, that transition. These writers need innovations in subject matter, in form, in plot and character. That's how they invented new forms, new expressions and all, in order to represent the shift that happened in many phases of life, in many phases of society. So we can see that avant-garde, which means make it new, is considered as the hallmark of modern literature. So what is considered as the hallmark of modern literature? Avant-garde. Avant-garde is a term associated to military, but in literature it is known as make it new. So that's what exactly happened in modern age. In modern age, everything that was conventional got a rejection, and something new, inventions and innovations and experiment took the position of conventional thoughts, and the focus was shifted from outer reality to inner reality. So until this modern age, or we can see in especially take the example of novels, they were all discussing about the outer reality, what is happening around the characters, because of certain atrocities happened, because of certain things happened in their life, what changes happened around them, or maybe perception of people towards that character, or the finance of that financial status of that character changed, or maybe because of gender something happened, like we have in Tess of D. Ubavilla of Thomas Hardy. So in that way, outer reality was discussed so far. But in modern age, inner reality got more focus than the outer reality. That's how a new form, a new kind of technique of narration, such as stream of consciousness, came into being. Okay? Then we can see that language became more condensed and plot non-chronological. It was not that they will narrate the story. Maybe there won't be a story at all. It will be a narration of a single day, just like we could see in Ulysses by James Joyce, or we could see Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. It may not be a big story, but still the plot will be non-chronological. It is not necessary that what happened in the first, what happened in the second, or what happened in that way. It won't follow. The plot won't follow the chronology, the time of events happened. Whatever happens in the first, it may not be in the first. Maybe it won't tell at all. We have to assume. We have to readers have to think about it. What may have happened after that. Okay, readers got more liberty to think, more involvement from readers. We could see the works that were written from modern age onwards. So language became more condensed, means in order to suit the new techniques that they invented, language also has to be, different. So that's how language became more condensed, and it became more thick, and it became more difficult to read and understand it, because it was not linear, it was not following any chronological order, and the choices of words were more different and all. The major literary trends we could see in modern age were Imagism, Dadaism, Surrealism, and Georgian poetry. Georgian poetry, more or less, they actually, it is not a group. This Georgian poetry is simply a group of poets who actually got published their poems in an anthology known as Georgian poetry. Okay, Georgian poetry is an anthology, and those poems got an entry into Georgian poetry, that anthology. Those poets are known as a Georgian poetry. It was not that they were consciously forming a group like Georgian poets and all. And Surrealism were there. So in Surrealism mainly we could see in paintings. Salvador Dali's Melting Clock is one of the major examples for surrealistic painting, in which they used hallucinations, they used dream, they used their unconventional thoughts. What image they have in mind, they actually portrayed that in the canvas. So in that way itself, whatever comes in the mindset of the the way in which things are happening in the mindset, in the dream or in the hallucination of that author, same way work will be written. So Dadaism, Imagism, which comes before Surrealism. So these are the major literary trends of this particular age, which is modern age. And we have many noteworthy poets here: W.B. Yeats, Alfred Noyes, Siegfried Sassoon, T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot's Wasteland we cannot actually skip. If we try to learn literature of modern age, we just cannot skip the Wasteland, which is a modern epic. T.S. Eliot's Wasteland, and W.H. Auden, Stephen Spender, Dylan Thomas. So these are the major poets. We will be dealing with each and every one of these poets in detail, and there will be videos about Wasteland and about T.S. Eliot's other poems and W.B. Yeats' poems, and all the major poems. There will be videos. So I am not going to discuss and elaborate it here now, because this is just an overview. When we deal with it in detail, we will look at it. Okay. So the major playwrights were George Bernard Shaw, John Galsworthy, Scene of Cassie, Noel Coward, Samuel Beckett, Waiting for Godot, remember? Samuel Beckett, Eugene Ionesco, Jean Genet, John Osborne, Harold Pinder. Harold Pinder, in every other net exam question paper, you will find a question associated to Harold Pinder. So he is that important till even now. Then famous novelists were Joseph Conrad, Rudyard Kipling, H.G. Wells, William Somerset Maugham, then James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, D.H. Lawrence, George Orwell, Graham Greene, and many more are there. I just mentioned some of the famous novelists and playwrights and poets. So that's all about modern age, I guess. So modern age ends with the end of Second World War. So in modern age especially, we could see that because of the World War, there is a shift in not only just a shift, but people actually lost some of the beliefs that they carried so far. If you see the history, you can understand that human race was slowly it was developing. It was moving towards, it was moving forward, it never moved backward. But with with two world wars, especially the bomb blast, atom bomb blast and all, suddenly a change happened. you know Human race was actually moving forward, but suddenly a break happened, and human beings came to understand that you know human beings are capable to destroy and destruct this globe, and it can actually end its own race. It is capable of destruction too. It's not that we will always move forward, but we will actually, there is a chance, because of this war and all, such atrocities, because of such atrocities, retardation of the growth can also happen. Such a belief was a great blow to the human race. So in that way, it was a great blow, these two world wars. Such an enormous amount of atrocities happened because of the war. The world population suffered because of it. It was not restricted to one nation or one territory, but the whole world actually suffered because of that. Many nations came to a very financially at a very low point because of that. Recession happened. So, and especially religious beliefs were disappearing among people. So many things were happening at a time. So we could see a kind of lost feeling in the works. There is a kind of, we could say, a kind of cry, a kind of lamentation for the lost prosperity, for the lost kind of world peace, or something they lost. Peace, sanity, or tidiness, or we could say many number of things happening, negative things happened because of world wars. So we could see that lost kind of lost feeling in modern age writing, especially the inner reality. When they spoke about inner reality, we could see a kind of lamentation because of all these lost and all. So that is also one of the peculiarity of modern age literature. But this kind of, even after World War II, World War II was too big comparing World War First. Its impact, its reach of impact was so high than the First World War. But still we cannot see such a kind of lament in the postmodern age writings. Something else we could see. It's a kind of, kind of laughter we could see. They are actually madly laughing because of the laugh, by seeing the lost, by seeing the destruction, by seeing everything that they are losing. They are not crying, they are actually laughing madly, just like a mad person. They are actually laughing about it. They are not crying about it. So there is a mood in, there is a way of representation or way of shift in mood we could see in here. So please remember these literary trends of modern age and noteworthy poets, major playwrights and novelists. So now we have arrived at the last age. It is not the last age, maybe it will be followed by many other age after us, but still so far this is the last age, the postmodern age or the contemporary age. Postmodern age is post 1945. After World War II, the age is known as the postmodern age or the contemporary age. So the writings of this age reflected social, political and personal disillusionment of their time. Most of the literature is not escapist in nature. So they were, while they were writing, they were not escaping to any other superficial world or not world and all, but they were they were telling about what is happening around them, what is the social, political and personal disillusionment that followed the war, post-war world. What is happening there? They actually made a reflection of all these things in their writing. It was not that they are suffering something and they want to have an escape from this current situation to some other world. It was not escapist in nature, but they were reflecting whatever surrounds their social, political and personal things, what are there, disillusionment or the atrocities that they could see They are represented in a very reflexive way as well. Dr. Valerie Morrison, he opined that focused on the subject of his or her culture, contemporary writers and artists are more intent on describing people's emotional states. People began to discuss about the local issues, local flavored things. After 1945, you could see that most of the colonies, European colonies, they got their freedom, independence from the colonizers. So this is also contributed to the opinion of, this is also one of the reasons what Valerie Morrison is saying, that people were actually, according to their own culture and their own life that they have, the society in which they were living, these contemporary writers and artists, they were more intent on describing people's emotional state, what the people are feeling, how the mood is changing, what are the local issues. So after after colonization, how this society is becoming an independent society, how these nations are struggling with their own internal issues. So especially in India, we have casteism, we have gender issues, we have class issues, we have religious issues, we have many number of partition issues we had. So how they are incorporating all these things, how they are adjusting with all these things, and how they are rising as a nation. So in that way, they were how people are thinking, what are their emotional status. So considering their culture, considering the author's culture and society in which he or she is residing, they more described about the people's emotional status after the war, after the independence, or after becoming an independent nation and all. Okay, now let's see some of the characteristics of postmodern age. So lack of resolution. This is one of the major characteristics we could see in postmodern literary forms. Lack of resolution means you cannot find any final resolution, final conclusion in any of the texts. If you read a postmodern novel, there won't be any conclusion. What happened to the characters? What happened to these problems? It will remain unresolved. It actually left unresolved. You can think whatever ways you want. As the potential reader, if you want to think in such a way about the end of the story, then there won't be any proper end. It will be open-ended. So lack of resolution is one of the major characteristics of postmodern age. Then focus on the personal rather than the social. There will be a background of social issues. It's not that there won't be at all a discussion of social issue, but it will be a background and personal issues, how a person is feeling, and what is the emotional status of people or that particular person in that background of while that person is living in such a background, such a social background. Okay. Then cynicism about the role of art and literature. There is a doubt, and literature and art held high all these ages, but when it comes to postmodern age, there is a cynicism or a doubt prevailing about the role of art and literature always that is there in postmodern age, and realistic setting. So as the literature is not escapist in nature, even though they are describing people's emotional status or personal things and all, they always kept a realistic settings. Then we have another characteristic, we have a subversion of traditional gender roles. So like I said, from modern age itself, a shift in focus of conventional gender beliefs, conventional beliefs about sex, race, caste, all these shifts were happening, and people were rejecting whatever there were as conventional. So subversion of traditional gender roles we could see in literature, especially in literature. So people, so far the major characters may be always men, but now we could see in postmodern world that women emerging as readers, writers, even critics. So in that way, unconventional or gender roles were dismantling in literature, as well as traditionally believed gender roles were also subverting. It was always like men will be superior to women, but this gender role, this gender status got subverted in many literature as well. Not only gender, but also in sex as well. Sex in the sense man woman, man woman, or male female. There had no representation of transgenders, or transsexuals, or we could say bisexuals, lesbians, gays. But these kind of genders also began to get recognition enormously after postmodern age. Then a blurring line between the natural and the artificial or constructed is also a characteristic of postmodern literature. Blurring, so there will be some realistic as well as some created elements in literature, artificial or constructed elements. But in literature, in that literary piece, you cannot find a line between these two things. You cannot, it is blurred. You don't understand, you cannot understand where this natural or original, or I won't say original, but realistic things ends, and where the artificial or constructed things start. So we cannot understand, it is mixed, and the author is also not cared enough to give a clarity in here. You can think whatever ways you want as a reader, as a potential reader. So these are some of the characteristics of postmodern age. Now let's see some of the contemporary dramatists, novelists, and postmodern poets. Dramatists are Christopher Fry, Bertolt Brecht, then John Arden, Arnold Wesker, David Story, Edward Bond, Joe Orton, Alan Bennett. So they belong to different categories or different genres of drama. Okay, so this Bertolt Brecht is epic dramatist. I mean epic drama. He belongs to epic drama. Then Arnold Wesker, Edward Bond belongs to theatre of cruelty. Or Edward Bond actually rewrote Shakespeare's King Lear as Lear. Then there are in postmodern era we have many number of genres in dramatists, such as drama in the field of in the genre of drama, such as angry young man theatre, existential theatre. We have epic theatre, we have theatre of cruelty, we have poor theatre. So in that way many number of theatre was there. So I mean genres were there within drama itself. And some of the contemporary novelists were Anthony Powell, William Cooper, Kingsley Amis, William Golding, who is the author of Lord of the Flies, then Doris May Lessing, Jane Iris Murdoch. So there are actually many number of novelists. I just mentioned some of them. Postmodern poets were Elizabeth Jennings, Ted Hughes, Philip Larkin, Patrick Kavanagh, and many more are there still. So these are some of the major literary persons that we could see in postmodern age. Please remember some of the characteristics of postmodern age: lack of resolution, focus on the personal rather than the social, cynicism about the role of art and literature, realistic settings, subversion of traditional gender roles, then blurring line between the natural and artificial constructed. So basically when we take a literary piece of work and we discuss, we will understand, you can understand this characteristics more and more. So when we discuss individual pieces of work, we will understand these characters more. So I think with postmodern age, our overview about history of literature ends here. I think so far whatever we have discussed or I have shared, I really feel that you have got something out of it. So if you have any doubts, any queries, any questions, or any suggestions to improve my video making, or to improve my quality of my video, please do that. Please make that suggestions and comments in the comment section. I'll be waiting for that. And please share this video if you like it, and press the like button too, and subscribe to my channel. And thank you for listening to my video, and let's meet in the next video. Until then, bye bye.